Henry VIII trusted Wolsey, and he had no interest in dealing with the administrative side of running the country. Wolsey bucked the opinions of his other counselors early on and approved of Henry's desire to go to war with France, which was an early success of Henry's. And that became a success for Wolsey too. By 1511, Wolsey had a seat on the Privy Council, and Henry trusted him with more and more responsibilities. Wolsey would continue to rise, adding offices to the Bishop of Lincoln and Archbishop of York to his resume. During this time, Wolsey had a romantic relationship with Joan Lark from Thetford. It wasn't uncommon for members of the church to have a relationship despite their vows of celibacy, and he had a son with Joan called Thomas Winter. Years later, Anne Boleyn, when she was queen, would write Thomas a letter, and in that letter she asked him to think of her as a friend. But ultimately, it was Thomas Cromwell who would take care of him and was the truest friend to him. In 1511, they also had a daughter, Dorothy. Dorothy joined the church, and Cromwell actually personally provided her pension when her convent was dissolved. Wolsey also served as the guardian to several noble children. He would get money for doing that, of course. The most notable was Henry Percy. Henry Percy apparently fell in love with Anne Boleyn during this time that he was living in Wolsey's household, which was when he entered that potentially fatal pre-contract. By 1515, Wolsey was reaching the height of his career. He was becoming Lord Chancellor, the highest legal office in the government, as well as being the king's most important counselor. Henry also made a few attempts to have Wolsey elected pope, and Wolsey had the supreme power over the English church. As the head of the church, Henry had plans to reorganize the English system. As the head of the church, Wolsey had plans to reorganize the English system, which created many enemies for him. For example, in 1528, he secured 2 papal bulls for renewal of English monastic life by suppressing all religious houses with fewer than 6 occupants and uniting greater houses with fewer than 12. Wolsey was on the road to revolutionizing the way the church and the monastic life in England was. But of course, he never got there because the Reformation happened. But it's interesting to think about what the church might have been like if the Reformation hadn't ever happened. Also, random fact about Wolsey, he never instigated burning a heretic. He was apparently known as being fairly lenient on heresy, unlike Thomas More and some of the other churchmen of his time. As the first minister, the Venetian ambassador Sebastian Giustinian said that Wolsey had a vast ability and that he was learned, extremely eloquent, and indefatigable. When things looked bleak for Wolsey, for example, when he was negotiating with the French in 1527, Cavendish wrote that the next morning after the conflict, he rose early in the morning, about 4 o'clock, sitting down to write letters into England unto the king, commanding one of his chaplains to prepare him to mass, insomuch that his said chaplain stood revested, that means ready in his vestments, until 4 o'clock at afternoon, all which season my lord never rose once to piss, nor yet to eat any meat, but continually wrote his letters with his own hands, having all that time his nightcap and kerchief on his head. So he was a workaholic. He was the kind of person who could see what needed to be done, and then he could get that done.